Gentlemen, Geoff Wilson here with Ryan Christian Ventura, the voice of BC ring announcing for BFL Prime Fight. My friend, I'm so excited to have you on Fighters, Coaches, and Fathers today because of your story and the things that I want to highlight on you. How are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing great. I actually just got out of the dojo right now. Big shout out to FKP MMA. I had a nice grappling session. It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome, man. So for those of you who don't know, Ryan's been doing ring announcing, and probably he's announced more fights than anyone in Canada, I believe, and also has gone through personal transformation in his life. That's exceptional. I want to talk about the losing over 100 pounds later, but let's go back to baby Ryan Ventura and maybe how you got into ring announcing in the first place.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to make this as short and sweet as possible, but I had many part-time jobs growing up. I had to work a lot in order to help support my family. I didn't grow up with a lot of money, so I had a lot of different kinds of part-time jobs and things like that. And one of my part-time jobs was I was actually a blogger for a website called lowkick.com. You ever heard of lowkick.com?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, lowkick.com in the early 2010s was a pretty big MMA website. They were actually ran by USA Today. And I actually had a blog myself where I would talk about fights, and they liked my writing style, so I worked for them. So when the UFC came to Vancouver in June of 2011, the headline main event was Junior Dos Santos versus Shane Carwin. Yeah, and I actually was credentialed to go to the fights myself, to go cover it.
So
And
credential means like media credentials. So you got
I had the media credentials, but it was like super limited. Like I couldn't go very far with it, you know. So essentially, it was like a free ticket to the show. That's what it was.
Okay.
But a few hours before the show, we had something called the World MMA Expo, and I won free tickets to go attend at the Vancouver Convention Center. And this is where they would have like things like seminars, and you can meet fighters, and they can take pictures and sign autographs with you and stuff like that. And I went there. I met all the fighters that were there. Like let's see who was there. Jason the Athlete McDonald. That's a name that many guys haven't heard in a long time. I think Chris Hordecki was there too, and I think Coach Sean Tompkins was there too. Rest in peace.
Amazing. Yeah.
Sean Tompkins was there. A lot of good people. Shoney Carter was there too, and we'll get into him later. But I actually saw a promoter. He was putting up flyers and things like that around the convention center, and it was for an event called Quest for Glory. It was a local upstart MMA promotion, and one of my other part-time jobs at the time was I was hosting and promoting hip-hop shows across town. And sometimes I would jump on the mic myself and hype up the crowd and stuff like that. And I've been a lifelong fight fan since pretty much like I was born almost. And I asked the guy, I'm like, hey, I'm a big fight fan. I've always wanted to try ring announcing because I've hyped crowds before. Do you guys need a ring announcer? And the promoter told me, no, unfortunately, we already hired a guy, but here's some free tickets, bring some people with you.
Nice.
And I said, okay, cool. And the event was the week after the UFC card. So the fights were at the Croatian Cultural Center. And, it was actually a very interesting event because this is before the BC Athletic Commission was around. There was another group called MMA BC, and it was headed by Bill Mahood, Paul Lazenby, some big like MMA names like in Canada and stuff like that, and they were
still doing great things. Yeah,
absolutely, and they were in charge of sort of, I guess you could say, governing the event. It wasn't sanctioned but governed. And I went to the show, and the guy that they hired as a ring announcer, he was okay, right? Like he wasn't ring announcing material, but apparently they found him at a film school, and he does like voiceovers for documentaries and stuff. But he wasn't ideal for hyping up a crowd. So the promoter came up to me and he's like, hey, Ryan, do you want to give this a shot? Do you want to get paid? Like, here's your chance. So like, this is like 3 fights deep into the card.
Really?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know anyone like on the card. I've never met anyone. I've never announced before. But I forgot to tell you this too. Something in me told me to pack a dress shirt and dress pants.
Nice.
I did. And like, as soon as he told me that, I'm like, oh, maybe this was meant to be. So, I'm like, hey, do you have a place where I can change? I get change. I put on my dress shirt and dress pants. It wasn't like the kind of stuff that I wear now, but it was good enough for what it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was interesting, man. Like I butchered a few names. At the time, like this was an interesting time too. It's not like the BC Athletic Commission where like they have a scorekeeper and a timekeeper and like they tell you all this information. I legitimately had to learn each fighter's name from their corner as they're walking into the ring. If the fight went to a decision, I had to go to the scorekeeper myself and score it on a Post-it note.
You didn't have any cards. You didn't have anything. They were just like throwing you in there with the, yeah, okay.
Pretty much. Like I scored the fights myself. I probably butchered a few scores and times too, man. But for some reason, the promoter, him and their group, they liked me enough. I just want to give a big shout out to Sammy Piccolo. He was the matchmaker for them. He gave me my start there, and yeah, they liked me enough, and I did all of their fights until they shut down, and the rest is history.
Man, that's an awesome story about being prepared for opportunity when it shows up. It reminds me of my first commentary gig was when my good friend AJ Scales was fighting not Todd McNeese, but I think maybe somebody else, and it was at the Agrodome in Regina, Saskatchewan, and I had just found out that AJ and the guy he was fighting both dated the same girl.
That's a good story, man.
And my two friends, Dr. Dennis Lawson, who's a doctor now in Ottawa, and Daryl Svensson, who is a black belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Regina, Saskatchewan, running the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Association out there, were commentating, and I knew them. I trained with them, and I said, hey guys, can I tell a story about these guys? They both dated the same girl. I want to sort of, and so they honestly, they turned to me and they go, Geoff, we have no idea what we're doing. Please sit down and do this. So we sat down and started talking about this. They both dated the same girl. We'll see if that comes into the fight. And the rest was history. They kept me going for UMCs until that organization shut down, and then into Saturday Night Fights, which still exists and is still rolling, and then a Modern Fighting Championship. Yeah. So it's funny, man, how things happen and how you kind of prepared for stuff that may happen and may not, but that's an amazing story, my friend. I thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
So a couple other things that are amazing about RCV is you also lost 100 pounds, dude, and you did this all while working as hard as you do. Talk to me a little bit about how that happened, and why it happened.
Well, as I got closer to turning 30, like I turned 31 in December. December 3rd is my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I guess really late, but thank you so much. I appreciate that. As I got closer to 30, I started to realize, hey, like I don't feel very attracted to myself. My girlfriend, God bless her, she's a wonderful woman. She loves me very much, and she's beautiful as well. But I feel like I wasn't the best that I could be for her, and it also kind of reflected in my ring announcing too. I knew that I was very passionate and talented. I truly believe in my own abilities, and it actually took a guy to actually like kind of wake me up a little bit, and it came from an unexpected source, because like I never thought that he would give me a big brother talk, but he did. I just want to give a big shout out to Paul the Typhoon Cheng. Me and him, we actually appeared on an MMA podcast at his home gym, Clinch MMA. We were on the show together, and he actually took me aside and he said, hey Ryan, I see what you do. I see your passion and enthusiasm for your craft. I fought all over the world. I've tried out for the WWE. I feel like, you could like be a lot better if, you took your health and well-being more seriously. In order to take your craft seriously, you have to look the part. And, I took that to heart. I started with DDP yoga. I started, watching my diet more. I've been cutting out the carbs and things like that. And I'm here now, man. He spoke to me before the weight loss. I mean, like I've had like a few other good friends speak to me, like my good friend Lance, my younger brother Randall, my mom. Lots of people are starting to get concerned about my health because like I weighed as heavy as 260 pounds, man.
Woo, how tall are you?
5'7".
Okay, it's a big.
Right, that was the most I've ever weighed in my entire life, and like I could feel it in my knees and my joints, and I didn't feel good about myself. And here's another thing, man. If it gets to the point where you can barely see your feet, that's fucked up. You gotta do something. And
Yeah, and to
right.
be honest, you can't grow your feet bigger.
Yeah, exactly, right. And if you
So
can't see your feet, you can't see what else is there, then you should really be concerned about your health. And
you're not gonna. So you started doing this change, and how do you get like? Because I remember talking to you about it. You're like, oh, I didn't really plan on losing that much, but you planned on doing something to make a change. And what was that?
Well, basically all I did for myself was I set micro goals. The biggest struggle that I had actually was just getting the whole thing started and taking the initiative to just fucking do it. The first goal that I had was, hey, let's do DDP yoga 1 hour a day, right? All right, cool. So I'm doing it 1 hour a day. So what's the next thing I got to do? Let's drink. Let's drink 5 liters of water a day. All right, cool. Right. So that's another goal. And then it got to the point where, okay, let's take it to a little bit more extreme. Let's cut out carbs for 5 days a week. Okay, good. Let's cut it out for 6. And then it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where like naturally it just kind of all worked out, and that's pretty much what I've been doing.
What
And
was the
it,
time frame for those micro goals? Have you doing about a year or about 18 months?
so from I would say from March of 2017 till about maybe March 2018. No. Actually, man, I know I started in March of 2017. This is where it all began, and then I would say a few months after. So August of 2017, I stepped into FKP MMA, Mr. Franco's gym, Chris Franco, on Fraser and 33rd.
Love those
And
guys.
then yeah, and then like as I started to like up the intensity in my workouts, I started to up the intensity in my diets. Just because like when you train with like in that kind of environment where everyone's encouraging, and you have a good mix of pro fighters, amateur fighters all together, you see what they're doing, it really motivates you to take what you're doing seriously too, right?
Mm-hmm. To be part of that social group, we've got this saying and it's interesting that when for example, in a kids class, you've got all these kids out doing jiu-jitsu. You bring a kid in who may be a problem child running around being crazy the whole time. By the end of that class, the alpha male of that class, 5, 7-year-old, whatever, will point out that kid and wrestle him down until he's exhausted. And what'll happen is that kid won't act like that again. And we call it the
True.
pack takes care of itself. So in the same way that you see that, it's that social group that you have and the people that you train with actually have an influence on you that you don't even realize is happening. And
Yeah.
so very important for you to understand who your friends are and who you're hanging out with. And it sounds like that sort of happened to you as well.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it was one of the best decisions of my life to go there. I mean, it helped me up my I was able, because of DDP yoga first, I was able to strengthen my knees, right? And then of course losing all that weight, that took a lot of pressure off my joints. So, I was able to like move around again. I was able to throw kicks, utilize footwork, and then eventually I started grappling and doing all that stuff again. And here I am now, man. I mean, the lightest I've ever weighed during competition time was about like the lightest I've weighed was actually like 155, 160 pounds.
Wow, that's
Right?
amazing, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Kudos to you. And what's amazing is not only did you do this, but you did this while working a whole bunch of different jobs.
Yeah.
But you also have this passion project, VCRC.
It's
Uh,
the VCRC, Vancouver Competitive Retro Gaming Club. Yeah,
there we go.
yeah,
There you
yeah.
go. Talk to us about that, man. That's a really interesting thing that you do. How did that all start?
Well, I've been involved in the Vancouver nightlife scene for a long time, actually. I would say I was doing hip hop events from about 2006 till about 2012, and then I branched off into doing like DJ shows and electronic events from 2015 to now. And after seeing all the different events and seeing the different kinds of people that would come to the shows, I realized that I felt like there was something missing in our nightlife scene, because there's either two things. If you're into the nightlife here in Vancouver, you either go to a bar or you go to a club, right? There's no in between. So I actually played in the NHL 94 World Championships last October, and people from all over the world came to play this 25-year-old hockey game for Sega Genesis.
I
I
love that
played it.
game.
Yeah, I know, me too. We should play sometime.
Done.
And like, a lot of the people that were there, there's probably at least like 120, 130 people at the Canadian Brew House in Richmond, all playing this one old video game. And after that event, like, I made it fairly far, but not as far as like some of the other guys that came from like New York and Finland and stuff like that came to play. But I came to the realization that, hey, there's enough people in this town that would actually come out, have a few beers, and relive their childhood. So I started this group to help, bridge the gap between, the people that have these interests that didn't think there was a social group for it. And I started doing these events. And when I started doing our series of Casual Friday events, I'd probably have like 4 or 5 people show up. And then it became 15 people. And then the last event we did, we probably had at least 25, 30 people come out. And it's starting to grow, and like the following online is growing quite big. More and more people are starting to know about our events and the different kinds of tournaments that we're doing, and it's a really unique way to meet new friends and live out your childhood again.
Yeah, I love it. And for me, I know that when I was going to university, there were two things that would happen. We'd house party all the time. You didn't really go to clubs. You didn't really have a lot of money, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you'd go to people's houses, and there'd be two things happening. Upstairs, everybody'd be talking, but downstairs, you'd have people playing Uno, and
Yeah.
then on the other side, you'd have the NHL '94 hockey tournament going, and you'd just be rotating through that. And those were great times. They were fun times, and just to get in and start playing games again like that, man, is such a beautiful thing that starts to connect people again in a world where I think that we really can use a little less social media and a little more. Hey, how's it going? Nice to touch you. You're a real person.
Yeah.
Let's play some video games. Let's have a conversation, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a lot more social than people think, especially for these old games. It's like, hey, I didn't know there was like 10 other people in the city that were into the same thing, and you can have a beer after, chat. It's a really good social event.
Yeah,
And
no, it's awesome that you're doing that too, man. Hey,
thank
like
you.
I know we talked a little bit about Paul Cheng, and some of the best advice you've got. Any other moments in your life, given as you're going up and down through life, that either advice from your family or from other people you're training with that guided you through, tough times in your life?
Oh man, I don't even know where to begin. Just because there was so many really good people that given me advice. I mean, everyone from like out of all people, like I never expected Paul Chang to give me a big brother talk. Just because like, we see each other at events, we say hello and everything like that, but I never expected him to take me aside and give me that conversation, which was excellent.
It's
Um,
funny about
yeah.
Paul is when you see him, he's the most intimidating looking guy
Yeah.
you've ever seen. I remember the first time I saw him at Richie Epps, and we met, and I made a joke, said, "What'd you say to that guy over there? He's really mad at you." And he's like, "What are you talking about? We're just messing around." And you talk to that guy, and he's like the best guy in the world.
Yeah. He's a
Yeah,
big he's a big teddy bear, man. That's for sure. That's for
yeah.
sure.
And an
Yeah.
incredible athlete with an incredible story. So
Actually,
that's
there's one bit of advice that I wouldn't say it's necessarily an advice, but a really good saying. A good friend of mine, he's actually the brother of the president of the BFL. His name's Jamak Golshani. He's one of the producers for the BFL.
oh yeah, I met J
Um,
Mac. I love J Mac. He's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, Jamak's a really good guy. Big shout out to him. Um, he actually would do motivational speeches at schools and things like that, right? And one of the coolest things that I've ever heard just because like I didn't even realize I was doing this until he said it. He said, your network is your net worth. Your network is your net worth, meaning that, like, you know, not necessarily financially, like, you know, the amount of people you know is worth something, but like, you know, having like, you know, a big, good, solid group of people, and like, you know, being able to branch out. Because like I know so many different kinds of people, and whether it be in the fight industry or through concerts and video games and everything like that, like I didn't even realize I was doing what he was saying, and it made sense to me.
Yeah, I agree completely with what you're saying, and what Jamak's saying around that. And it was interesting because where I saw the difference in people whose careers started to really take off in the last 10, 15 years versus people's who kind of were stagnant was their ability to have larger, what would you say, more like acquaintance networks. Like you and I, we met each other in that network, right? Knew
Yeah,
of
pretty
you.
much. Yeah.
You know, we become friends, but there's a situation where we kind of knew of each other, and then all of a sudden, like, hey, you want to do this? Hey, you want to do this? Hey, let's have a conversation. And all of a sudden, we bridge my network to your network to mine, and all this stuff. Because, oh yeah, I know him. He's great. We do the stuff. And the people that built their LinkedIn network, the people that built their Facebook network, the people that built it as big as they could now can send something out like, oh, hey, I just lost my iPhone. Anybody got one? And all of a sudden, three people be like, yeah, man, I got one. It's for you. Versus
Yeah, that's so true.
25
Yeah.
friends on Facebook and I don't do social media. It's almost like you're lost in a new world, right? So what J-Mac's saying is exactly right. And you can see it when you have that wide network of friends. If you haven't done that, and of course, creating too, you got to create stuff, right? Let me share a story with you. And I want you to think about one of the strangest things that may have happened to you in the ring
Sure.
or just outside of it.
Oh, okay.
Because I mean, the amount of fights that you've been ringing out, so I bet you there's a couple. I'll just share a couple. I remember sitting at a commentary table, the guy got hit, and mouthpiece actually hit the commentary table, hit me in the face, which gross and awesome all at the same time.
Yeah.
I ended up getting knocked out. We've had people step on the table, you know, crazy stuff that had happened. Yeah,
Oh,
guys that
man.
wouldn't interview live. You just like, what's you okay? You know, but
Yeah.
any crazy stuff that sort of happened in the ring with the amount of stuff that you've been doing that.
Oh, man, I got a few good ones. I mean, okay, I guess I just this one just randomly popped in my head. I haven't thought about it in a long time, and I'm not going to put anyone on blast, but this was before I started working for the BFL. So this is when I was working smaller shows.
Yeah.
I was like outside of the hall where I was going to introduce, and like I smell like this really strong stench of pot. Right? I'm like, who's just blazing? Like, this is before like legalization. Like, who's blazing right in front of the door of this hall? I look to the right of me. The fuck is the guy that's fighting in the main event? I'm like, he nods his head at me, and I nod his head at him. He's like, don't tell anyone. I'm like, all right. And I introduce him in the main event, and like he gets knocked out in the third round. And so I'm like, and in the back of my head, I'm like, maybe you shouldn't have smoked that doobie before you got in the ring, right? I mean, like everyone wants to be Nick Diaz, but not everyone's Nick Diaz. You know what I mean? Not everyone can fight stoned. And then,
and I don't think he fights stoned. Let's be honest. I think he smokes a lot, but maybe right after. But I don't think he's actually in there doing that.
I don't think at the event that I was doing at the time, they don't do any checks like that. It's like, you ready to go? All right, we got like a first aid guy. Let's go. Right?
Yeah.
That was the early days. There was actually one BFL fight where someone's ear exploded. Yeah. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but from commentary side, we could see his left ear like puffing up because he had major like cauliflower ear.
Yeah.
And there was a big left hook that connected right to the ear, and it was like Kill Bill. It was like there was like blood all over commentary side. It got as far as the back. Like as soon as I saw the ear get bigger, I back up as far as I could because like I knew it was gonna happen. And as it happened, even as I backed up, I still got a good splatter like on my brand new dress shirt. I think that was the last time I wore that shirt just because like I couldn't get it out. Actually, I think Dennis Kang was there. I think Dennis Kang was there. You might want to ask him because like he was doing commentary for the BFL at the time too.
Yeah, I love Dennis Kang and always a
Yeah.
big fan of his stuff. And yeah, like I said, we got pepper sprayed together back in an event back in the day. So,
I love that story, man. I love that story.
Well, you can watch it on the channel that this full interview. Hey, man, so good to talk to you. So much fun, and enjoyed seeing you at the BFL event last time we were out. Talk to me about what's next for you, my friend.
Well, I have a few other things that are next that I can't quite reveal just yet. But you know, I'm still a regular over for the Z Promotions Fight Night events over in Alberta. Big shout outs to Keith and Tom. They brought me over to Alberta, and they actually brought me to Vegas too, where they co-promoted with Tough Enough down there. I am one of the few announcers in Vegas that's actually licensed. And also get this, apparently I'm the youngest ring announcer to ever announce in Vegas too.
That's awesome, man. Great to hear. And so I don't know what you're not telling me, but I got a feeling in the next couple of months maybe we will have another conversation.
Very soon, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Ryan Christian Ventura, RCV. Thank you so much for taking the time, brother, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.